Welcome in everyone to another bonus episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I'm ZB Zach Brown. We are going to just jumpstart this back into the interview with my grandfather Davey Brown Sr. in part two and getting into the modern times. Enjoy. Through the 90s and early 2000s, and this is where I can start remembering who you worked on. You worked on Donnie's for a while, a long time.
Yeah,
Chris Ash and all
worked
those
for
drivers. So
Chris for about 3 years, and I worked with Donnie's off and on, and also the Chessons.
yeah,
Uh, we built motors for them and cars, and they won some races. He won a big race at Eldora. TJ did, which at that time paid $100,000 to win, which was a lot of money.
yeah.
In the '90s, I guess that well, no, early 2000s, I guess, but he won a big race, and they had two cars. It was PJ, and so I worked for them about. I didn't go to all the races. They traveled around. I built all their motors for them and stuff for about 3 years, I guess, something like that. They were from New Jersey. They were really very nice people, and they did a lot for me.
Um, your your name definitely got out there a lot to build engines, and I know a lot of people don't know about this. Well, maybe they don't, but you helped build engines who for people who eventually turned into, I guess, iconic NASCAR drivers like Casey. So I guess just talk about like those who you remember building for that kind of elevated their career that kind of people really would be impressed by, I guess.
Uh, I don't know exactly. I'm sure exactly who
I
you're.
know, Casey Kane was one of them. I know that.
Yeah, Casey Kane. He actually come in. Let me see how was that was. He come in and he drove. Let me see. I can't think who he come in. He drove a few cars and yeah, he did. He went on to NASCAR and he's back in. He got hurt some and he's back in the racing now. So he's with the World Outlaws. So I do see him now and then. But we did a little work when he was just young and started racing. Yeah.
Did you did you ever think about doing a full time either Outlaws or I guess when the All Stars came about, going full time with them or any other series? One of these, I guess, just any of these dirt racing series that kind of took off.
No, I really didn't want to go traveling all that much. To tell you the truth, uh, even when Wolfgang ran, I went to most of the big races, but him and Davey mostly went to a lot of other races that I didn't go. But we did race quite a bit around here too. So, but I was never interested in traveling the whole outlaw circuit. That's a tough deal, and
Yeah,
you live on the road, and I really didn't want to do that.
I think the Outlaws probably appreciated that too. They didn't want to get whipped every week back then, so that they could probably thank you for that. Um, so obviously now going now you're with Lance, but right before that, you were with Donnie for a long time, and obviously I've remembered that for a while. Um, what was that like, just racing with Donnie for that many years, and just kind of seeing him transition, I guess, into just an owner, and I guess now dad of a race car driver too. So
It was, yeah. Well, Donnie was he was a good driver, particularly a good slick track driver. The track slicked off. He was pretty hard to beat. The track was real fast, a little bit different, but he, you know, he he's a good driver, and he had a lot of good years. And of course, they have a speed shop now, and he works on the cars we have now, and I do. I did all the engines for him, and I got where I couldn't do them all. So my friend Tom Ryder, who's not too far from here, He kept getting bigger. I got him into sprint car racing. He was doing drag race and stuff, and he's got a complete shop now with probably 8, 10 employees, a big shop, and they build engines for a lot of people.
But
And
how did you get to come across him when he was just drag racing and all that?
I knew his dad for a while, and I don't know. I knew him, and I think he needed some parts and some of this. He wanted to get into some sprint car racing, so uh, I went up early and helped him get some stuff a little bit. But they were, and then they had a nice smaller shop, and then he got a little big, and now he has a very nice big shop with every kind of equipment you can think of, dynos and he can do heads off the machines, and he has everything. So they're nice people, and they do build engines for a lot of people now, and on the Outlaws and all. So he's also one of the guys. There's only two people, Toyota's building a sprint car motor. They've been having problems. Him and Speedway Motors in Indiana are the two guys that are developing this Toyota 410 sprint car motor, which some of the, I forget who runs them, but they're having some problems with them, and they're fast, but they've been having some trouble with them holding together. But they'll get it. So
Who's who's driving those cars with the Toyotas?
uh, huh?
I didn't hear it.
He wonder who's driving the Toyotas.
Oh,
There's a West Coast driver. I can't think.
Larry, no.
That would
Larry,
make sense.
wait a minute. My memory's bad.
I didn't even know they were running any Toyotas in sprint cars right now. I
Yeah,
know they were running Fords,
I think
with and stuff because
yeah,
Tony Stewart has
Donnie
his.
Donnie Schatz runs a Ford motor, but Ford is not interested in selling a lot of motors. Toyota wants to get them developed, and they want to sell motors just about all the midgets now run a Toyota. It's a four-cylinder, the midgets run, and
Mm.
they just practically all run Toyota motors now. I mean,
Huh.
Speedway Motors and does a lot of them, and they're practically all. If you want to win in a midget now, you're going to have a Toyota motor. So they working on this development program now for a couple years, and I don't think they made stuff a little maybe lighter than it should be, and they had a lot of problems, but they're getting better and better. And I think in a year or so, you'll probably see quite a few cars have Toyota motors in.
Well, you saw
Think-
them slowly
I
get
think they're
incorporated.
about a year away yet.
Well, you saw them get incorporated with NASCAR and how successful they eventually became because they were terrible in that, and they took over the sport. It also helps they had like Kyle Busch and everybody to drive for them. But
So glad, yeah. Well,
um,
the TRD out in California actually had a little bit to do with this, but they didn't quite understand. But who drives it?
McFadden,
And Celsi, right?
yeah,
Oh, Celsi, Gio.
Yeah.
Yeah, Giovanni Celsi.
he was the first one.
He was the first Toyota. Now McFadden's driving it. Now McFadden.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that.
No, I didn't. My memory's not good, but
Shoot, I didn't know anything about that. So that's interesting. Well, keeping on the whole engine thing before we kind of get into modern times, what what do you think allowed you to have the most, I guess, success and just consistency having all these fast engines from shoot 50s on to now? Like, what do you think it's made that made
well,
it be so successful?
I think a lot of we did practically all our own work, except maybe some of the machine work, of course. But we also I worked on the cars that I did the motors for, rather than just built motors for people and put them in cars. So you have a lot better feedback on what your motor's actually doing when you're working on a race car. But a lot of guys get motors, say the motor don't run from a lot of different engine builders, and it's usually not the motor's fault. It's usually the car or the driver. But if you're working on them yourself, you know what you got, and I think it gives you a somewhat an advantage. But there's so many good motor builders now that there's a lot. Everybody's got horsepower these days.
Do you
If
still have a say in what happens with the engines when you go talk to Ryder and stuff? You ever go up there to his shop? Do you ever go up to Ryder's shop and see,
Oh
give him
yeah,
any tips and everything?
I'm up at Rogers quite often.
Okay.
He's not far away. He's on the other side of Mechanicsburg, not far away.
Is
And
the
we're good friends, and we've been friends for a long time. So
does
I'm
he
up there quite often.
does he do the mag work and stuff too, or you guys have somebody else for all that?
Well, he sends them out to somebody
Okay.
else. Yeah.
I know. So is the famed garage still there in the where it's always been your garage,
Yeah, it's still the same. I'm not,
the teal and
I,
white one?
I didn't do any engines this year. I do have one engine from last year that we did that we won quite a few races with, and his daughter, Donnie's daughter, drives some, and she has one of my engines. But
Now,
I don't do much engine work.
did she move up to 410s now?
Yes.
Okay, and so if you, has she done better? Except from outside perspective, she's done better in the 410s it seems than the 305s. I don't know, maybe it's just just outside looking in, but it seems like she's adapted to that a lot better than the 305s.
Yeah, she don't get a chance to race a whole lot because we just don't have the time and to get a car ready for her. But she runs pretty good up at Port Royal. That's her best racetrack, I'd say. And if the track slicks off, she'll run. She could run 10th, 12th, something like that.
Hey, I mean that's you got to start somewhere. You
Well,
definitely.
there's no slow cars anymore, That days past. You got 40 cars there, and there ain't none of them slow. They all got top engines. I don't know. They all. There's no cheap race cars no more like there used to be. So it's tough. She don't get to race as much as she should, but just don't have time to get cars ready.
Well, since we're talking about Cassidy, let's just move right into the driver that I know a lot of people uh, that have their eyes on down here. He came down for the World Finals, and I saw T-shirts at the World Finals for people that weren't even part of the crew. So, Lance Deweese, he first of all, how the heck did Donnie get Lance to race that car, and how has that been these last few years? It's obvious the stats don't lie, so it's been pretty incredible.
Well, Lance didn't really. He wasn't racing much for 2 or 3 years. He didn't really have any good rides. He wasn't racing near all the time. So uh, Donnie couldn't drive no more because he had that head concussion and everything. So he wasn't allowed to race. So that winter, Lance called Donnie up, and we didn't have much stuff. We had two engines and one car. And called Donnie up and wanted to know if he could run his race car. And Donnie called me, and I said, "Yeah, it's fine with me." So we told Lance we didn't have a ton of equipment, which at that time we still don't have a lot compared to most of them. But so Lance got in the car, and he didn't win right at first, but we didn't win too many races till he won a race. And how many years ago was that? 5?
Man, at least
I think it's
six.
been at least 5.
I
Yeah.
think probably 6 or 7.
5. This would
Well,
probably be
I'll
6.
say it's been successful. It's clearly worked out. I mean, when you get 3 Hall of Famers all into one team, probably going to have success. So, and a lot of people out from the outside, oh, they're cheating, all this, all that. No, they're just smarter than you. So, uh, um, going from that, let's look at this year just real quick before there's some people that asked some questions from. You have a fan page, by the way, that you probably didn't really know about. So a lot of people, uh, for me, it's like I didn't realize how big of a deal that how much you've affected a lot of people's lives by just showing interest in racing, and then the competitors themselves, they've been influenced by how your longevity and how successful you've been. I just look at you as my grandpa. It doesn't uh, it doesn't, and then you see how big of a deal it is, and it's like, well, that's pretty cool. um but so what the biggest thing that stands out this year with Lance, how did he come up with deciding going to Eldora this year? He hasn't been to Eldora in a while.
We haven't been to Eldora a while. I don't know. They set the schedule, so I don't. And I guess well, that one race pays $1 million to win, of course. But
I'd go
I don't
to.
know how much that had to do with it. But
Mm.
they decided for some reason that they want to go to Eldora, and if you have any chance, you're going to have to go out there. You just ain't going to go out there for one big weekend and do anything. You're going to have to go out there and race some races, because Eldora's different. And I it's a fast racetrack for the size of it. So uh, they made up the schedule. So they decided. I don't know whether he got a little bit of a deal to come out or something. I don't really know, but
are,
probably. But
are you
usually,
going to go to that?
I'm going to try to go to at least. I'm going to see. It's a long ride. It's like 8 to 9 hour drive. It's because it's all but in Indiana. It's right almost on the border.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to go out probably the first or second time out and see how. I don't like to ride that far or not anymore. It's a pretty long ride.
Well,
But
since
I've tried. I would like to go out at least one time.
since Tony's taken over that track, it's improved tremendously. The facilities and everything. I went with my dad to the truck race that they had up there, that the second year they ever had it. So it's definitely improved a lot.
Yeah, it always was the top track in Ohio, even when Earl Bolles had it. Which back them days when they first had that big race and paid 50,000 to win. Well, 50,000 back in the '80s was quite a bit of money.
Shoot, 50,000 now is fine. I mean,
Yeah, it still is. So $1 million, I'm sure somebody else is putting that up. I'd sooner see it pay 500,000, put money back in the purse, but that don't make the big publicity.
oh, I
So,
mean, if you guys win that, it doesn't matter what the purse is. Then go ahead.
uh, don't
There-
matter. But Brett Marks won it last year, so who knows?
he was on a run last year. He had a just
He
an
has a
insane
Brett
year.
Marks is a very good driver. He's a very good driver. So
Um,
we'll go out and try it for a couple of times to see how it works out.
that's a lot of people are going to keep that on the radar. I know I am. I would love to make it out there, but you have a great granddaughter that's due that month, and it'll be any time around then. So,
Okay.
so she'll be here right around then. But I'll definitely turn that on TV to watch that.
Okay. Well, at least you can watch it on. At least now you can watch races anywhere anymore. So
I'll make sure I find that one no matter what. That's
we'll
a
see
big
what
one.
happens. It'll be very difficult, I would say, but you never know.
It's just it all depends how the track is and how kind of you got to have a little bit of luck with it too, getting the right draw
Gotta
and
have
all
a
that. So it's all that. So I'm sure the Outlaws might have a little bit of a fix in to make sure any posse don't try to win. So you'll see a little bit of that. Not saying they cheat, but we've seen them affect the outcome of some races before. Um, so again, before these questions, in your opinion, who do you think has been the most talented race car driver that you've seen? Anywhere from back in the day up to modern times, and I mean you've got up now that you had firsthand experience racing against Kyle Larson and everything. So and obviously he's a generational talent too. So is there anybody that you might put on the top tier in your opinion?
Carl Larson I don't think anybody. I mean, he can drive anything, late model, sprint cars, NASCAR. I mean, he's got to be one of the most talented racers ever. far as I'm concerned. Back in my day when we raced with Wolfgang, you had to put Steve Kinzer right up there at the top of the list. Nobody was better than him. Him and Carl Kinzer, they were in their day. I don't know how many outlaw championships they won, and I always like Donnie Schatz. He's a great driver, and he's a good, clean driver. You could race alongside of him all day long. You never had to worry about getting hit or anything. So I think right now I think Donnie Schatz. I hope he hadn't had a real good year the last couple of years, but I think he'll be pretty good this year. They went with that Ford motor, which had a lot of power, but uh, they couldn't get it where he could drive it. So then they took the motors down to out to California. Ron Shavers, I think, which I've known forever, and I think they got him pretty well dialed in. So I look for him to have a pretty good year. And they're just, so many top drivers.
Well, Schatz actually raced. He got second down at Volusia in the All Star race. He would have won that race, but his front wing caved in after he had some. Do you keep up with the races and everything, all that?
I did. I saw. I didn't see it live, but I saw a replay of that, and you can see the front wing when it started to go.
Yeah, he had a little bit. He had little words from Macri for that.
Yeah, and he couldn't. It kept getting worse and worse, and it gets to a point that I can't believe how he did good as he did. You can hardly drive him.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That car was definitely the fastest there, but
Yeah, so
um,
he's a good driver, good slick track driver, particularly.
um, so you've had this such a long career, and you can pick anybody. Has there been like a legitimate rivalry that you've had whether it's in the pits or between your drivers and everything that's kind of stuck out in your mind? I want to say probably Raymer would be one of them, but have you had a decent, I don't know, rivalry with anybody since the 50s? Is there anybody that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, not not really. I mean, you always
It's
have.
okay. You can call anybody out. It's fine.
No, I don't have nobody to call out. I never really got into that much. The people, the fans that get in a lot more than I did.
Oh, I've heard stories.
I just pretty much worried about my race car. I didn't really care what other people did or didn't do. Uh, you have a. We never really had a whole lot of problems. You get a little problem here and there, but you know, I never really worry about that. If I figure if I get my car fast, we'll be okay.
Well, I think anymore people want to try to make rivalries out of something just to get a
They
little
do.
publicity anymore.
The fans like to do that.
Yeah. Um. So, is there a out of all of these tracks, whether that you still go to them or not, is there one that I mean, you go to Port Royal and Williams Grove all the time, but is there a favorite track of yours, whether in the
Well,
past or now?
Williams Grove will always be my favorite track, and it's a tough racetrack because we got long straightaways and sharp corners, and most people don't like it, but I've had a lot of success there, and I would still have to say Williams Grove is still my favorite racetrack.
So they did that big interview and everything with you 2 years
This
ago, I guess, when you had that tribute race to you
right.
at the Grove, and they were saying, and now it's going to be more than that, but around 900 wins in your career, just I guess as a mechanic, um, not counting the engines that you built for other people that won races that you weren't particularly exactly involved with. Do you even have an idea how many wins you're probably responsible for?
That's
Because I don't
probably
think that number's accurate. I feel like it's a little low.
it could be. I never kept track, but it's been a long time, so I'd say I probably won 1,000 races,
I
truth,
would think so.
or maybe a little more than that.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track, especially when you raced as much as you, especially in the 50s and 60s. I mean,
Right.
you raced what, 60, 70 times a year?
Oh yeah, yeah, at least. Well,
Um,
it used to be can win more races then, because, years ago, you probably had 4, 5, 6 cars to beat. Now you got 40 cars to beat, There are no slow cars no more.
No, you
Yeah,
still do a good job. You guys still do a good job of whipping them, and they don't like that. Uh,
no, they don't like it.
well, that's why the
They
Outlaws
think
put
get
Port Royal
by
on the schedule.
by,
Well, they put Port Royal on the schedule again for an extra set of races there this year. I guess they want revenge. I don't know.
well, they're coming up here early, I
In
guess
March.
about second week in March, and they've been racing, so I would expect, and also we had our rear tires. I guess they're changing them. I guess they're going to start to run them after Volusia. They're going to be different construction. They're a harder compound, and we don't know nothing about them. And the Outlaws are going to have them before we do. So I would say the Outlaws are probably going to have a pretty good chance on it for two reasons. One for reason they've been racing down in Florida, and we haven't been racing at all, and Lance hasn't drove at all. And
Well, that could be a good and bad thing.
huh?
That could be a good and bad thing. Really,
Yeah.
I mean.
So, and we don't know what these new tires. I don't think we'll see them, any of them, until we race up here. So we don't know what they're going to do. So we'll be at a pretty big disadvantage, but we'll see what happens.
Um, is there a win in your career that sticks out the most and is probably the most proud one that you've ever had?
Oh, I think probably Knoxville. We won that twice. That's the biggest. That's still the biggest race in the country, and winning Eldora, and winning the Williams Grove Open. How many times? 7, 8. I don't know. So
Just casually saying that, that's great.
I think the race we won this fall is one of the biggest. I consider one of our biggest
that
races
was
we ever won.
that was incredible.
To beat the best of the best, and I have to. Winning up at Port Royal, Tuscarora 50, won that a couple times. And but I say winning the race this fall to me, because I don't know whether I'd be able to race this year or not. You never know health wise. Was probably I consider one of my biggest races ever.
Well, that's what winning that National Open. That's what Lance. I was working at the World Finals, off duty, and I got to basically be Lance's private security down here. That's the reason why they came down, because they won the National Open. So,
Right.
if they do come down again, I'm going to tell them to make sure they somehow bring you down, because that would be great.
They would have brought me. I just didn't go, but I probably should have. But I've been a long time, so I've raced on that track many years ago. Of course, it's a little better now, but
It's an interesting track.
yeah,
It's
yeah, it's
it's a dust bowl, really, every single
still
year.
dusty. It was when I raced down there 2 years when it first opened up.
Yeah,
It was
they can't
dusty,
quite get it right. The first day is always the best day, and then it just goes downhill from there. That's what
dusty.
I noticed when I was down there. I still have dirt caught in between my radio that I had at the race, so so it just, you can't get any of that stuff out.
It's not a bad racetrack. It's pretty fast for the size of it when it's in shape. But we'll see. If I stay healthy, maybe I'll get down next year.
Well, if they hopefully he'll decide to come down. That was a lot of fun. It's really not a bad drive. I mean, he's go
Oh, it's not too bad. It's probably 8 hours, something like that.
no, and then I mean, bonus, I'm down here, so that's cool too. Uh, um, so we're just kind of drift away a little bit. We'll finish up here in a minute, but do you keep up with other types of racing? You keep up with so like Larson, he races, well, every series, but
I do.
he races his late model and the sprint cars. And do you keep up with those? And do you keep up with the NASCAR races as the Daytona races coming up?
I do watch. I get Mav TV. I do watch the late models on Mav TV and the super late models and all those guys and McCready and all. Well, I did know McCready's dad. He ran modifieds. So I think on TV, because you don't notice the speed like you do live, I think the super late models, what they call them, I think they put on one of the best shows on dirt, really. Now, if you watch them live, the sprints are way faster, of course, and it's a little different. But uh, them guys, they put on a heck of a show. So I do watch them anytime that try to when they show them on TV. So I watch the dirt. I like the dirt late models. They're incredible race cars, really. They're very complicated, and so Kyle Larson, he's got to be one of the greatest ever. He can run anything: sprint cars, late models, NASCAR. I don't think any one other driver has been more versatile ever than he has been. So you got to give him credit. He's one of the best, that's for sure.
Well, the issue he had in NASCAR or whatever a couple years ago that got him suspended or whatever it was, I guess that ended up being the best thing that happened to him because he went to arguably one of the best teams. So
Yeah,
put that together, that's bound to be successful.
yep, yep. He's incredible. I met him a couple times. I don't know him. Him and Lance are actually pretty good friends.
Yeah.
We talk quite often. I met him, talked a little bit, and I don't know him very well, but he's one heck of a race car. I mean, he's a heck of a sprint. He could go back and run sprints full time anytime he wanted to and win pretty regularly. I'm sure of that.
Um, so do you keep up with? Did you have you always followed? Obviously the dirt racing, but have you always followed NASCAR? Or has it kind of? So for me, I've really after I guess Dale Jr. retired, I didn't really have anybody to watch. But when Larson started racing and seeing all of his talent, it kind of reinvigorated my I guess passion and everything to watch those races. Is that kind of how it did for you? Or have you always kind of kept up with it?
I do follow it some. I don't normally like the Daytona race. It pretty much I'll watch it off and on until near the end because it's pretty much who's going to survive all
Yeah,
the wrecks.
it's a crapshoot.
I don't, and a lot of that races I'll watch a little bit at the start, and then towards the end, the last 30, 40, 50 laps, something like that, I'll probably watch. They wreck so much on the super speedways. I don't know. I don't think it's that great a racing.
Just have to plug it.
Well,
So, but
well, surprisingly, down last year at Talladega, there were no wrecks at all in
yeah,
the Cup race.
that's
We were at
strange.
the race, and I mean, could have used a crash would have been nice, but it it definitely it did. It was very shocking. Now, if you want to see crashes, go to the truck race, and they
Oh
think it's the
yeah,
demolition derby at all their races.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
don't watch the trucks much.
well, I'll watch all of them this. Well, I'll try to at least keep up with them this weekend. I don't know. Daytona kind of gets everything kick started for
Right.
me, so um, I know people. I know somebody wanted to know um, what advice do you have for some young racers or ones that are aspiring to start in racing, whether either they're racers themselves or even just working on cars. What kind of what advice would you have for them?
Well, you got to work hard at it. You got to give up a lot to do it, and
Put in the
and
hours.
try to do your own thing rather than looking around what everybody else is doing all the time. Just try to learn to do stuff yourself. I don't really ever bother looking at anybody else's race cars. Tell you the truth, I have enough trouble with my own. But I wouldn't say it's a hard deal. And these outlaws, as much as they travel, it's a hard life. So, but they enjoy it. So just work hard and don't expect to get a whole lot of sleep.
All right, Pop. So well, that's pretty much take. That's I'm pretty much good with this interview. I know it's. I learned a lot. Obviously, didn't. No one really knew exactly how you got into racing, and they didn't really. There's articles and stuff that you can find about you, but nobody's really heard from you I mean, we don't like the media. We don't like to talk to people. Shoot, I mean, I know the tribute race was awesome for the family and awesome to see you get honored that way. I know that that's not your cup of tea. You just want to go out there and race. Uh, so I mean, that's why I wanted to get this out there. Not a lot of people get to see you talk, and hopefully this will get around and people get to know all the stories with you, and um, hopefully they enjoy it. But I appreciate you hopping on with me. Daytona 500 qualifying tonight. I don't know if you knew about that, but that's tonight.
oh.
I'll have that on up here tonight. So
Gotcha.
this will actually release on Friday and everything. So I definitely it was definitely interesting. That's why I told you. Who knows how long this might be? So it was. It's definitely been fun. I enjoyed that. So, you have anything else you want to talk about, Pop?
No, not really. I wish my memory was a little better. I could tell you a
Your
little
memory, shoot, you gave me every decade you've ever been in.
But it
Shoot,
was fun doing it, and I'm glad to talk to you, and hope everything goes well for you.